rain on Moji Island was a constant companion. It fell in thick gray sheets, turning the packed earth paths of the U.S. base into rivers of mud that sucked at boots and morale alike. For the men of the 3rd Marine Division, it was just another enemy to endure. In a corner of the Signal Corps' tent, 2 men sat across from each other at a field table, the canvas above them drumming a steady, weary rhythm. One was Captain Jack Reynolds, a wiry man from Texas with permanent fatigue etched into the lines around his eyes. Across from him sat Private First Class Thomas H. Begay, a young Navajo man with a quiet intensity that unnerved some of the other Marines. He was one of the code talkers. Their job was the heart of the battalion's communication. The Japanese were experts at intercepting radio traffic and breaking codes. But the Navajo language, unwritten and incredibly complex, was a code the enemy could never crack. A runner burst into the tent, water dripping from his helmet. "Captain, forward patrol is pinned down at the base of Hill 210. They're taking heavy fire from a hidden machine gun nest. They need coordinates for an airstrike, and they need it now." Jack's blood ran cold. A normal radio message would be intercepted instantly, revealing the patrol's position and compromising the entire operation. He turned to Thomas. The air in the tent grew still, the only sound the rain and the static hiss from the radio. "It's on us, Thomas," Jack said, his voice low and urgent. He slid a notepad and pencil across the muddy table. "Tell them we're listening." Thomas closed his eyes for a brief second. He wasn't just a Marine. He was a guardian of a sacred language, now a weapon of war. He thought of his home in the Four Corners region, the red rocks and vast blue skies, a world away from this green, sodden hell. He thought of the Navajo word for turtle shaddai guy, which they used for a tank. He thought of the word for chicken hawk atso, which meant dive bomber. This was their power. He picked up the radio handset. He didn't speak in code. He spoke in his mother tongue, a beautiful, guttural flow of sound that was pure gibberish to anyone but another Navajo. "Atsa, Atsa," he began, his voice calm and clear. He relayed the patrol's desperate situation. He spoke of Dibe sheep for the companies and used descriptive terms to paint a picture of the landscape. He gave the coordinates, not as numbers, but as words woven into the story. On the other end of the radio, hundreds of miles away, another Navajo code talker listened, his face a mask of concentration. He transcribed the message instantly, handing it to an intelligence officer. Within minutes, 2 Corsair fighter bombers were peeling off from their patrol and screaming towards Hill 210. Back in the tent, the wait was agony. Jack paced, chewing on his thumbnail. Thomas sat perfectly still, his dark eyes fixed on the radio, his hands resting calmly on the table. He was a conduit for life and death, and he felt the weight of every silent second. Then the radio crackled to life. The same calm Navajo voice from before came through. Thomas listened, his expression unchanging. He set the handset down gently. "They are safe," Thomas said quietly. "The nest is destroyed. The patrol is moving back to the lines. They said thank you." A wave of relief washed over Jack, so powerful he had to grip the edge of the table. He looked at the young man before him, this quiet warrior who had just saved dozens of lives with nothing but his voice. "Thomas," Jack started, his own voice thick with emotion. We don't know what to say? There are no medals for what you do. No one can ever know." Thomas gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. He looked down at his hands, and out at the rain continuing to fall on the canvas tent. He thought of the enemy, who would hear his words on their radio intercepts, and hear only the beautiful, mysterious sounds of wind and earth, of a language they could never possess. "The secret is safe," Thomas said, his voice barely a whisper above the rain. "The language was here long before any of us. It will be here long after. We are just its voice." Outside, the rain continued its steady fall on Moji. washing away the mud and the blood. But it could not wash away the power of the words that had just flown through the air, a silent, unbreakable code that had turned the tide of a small, desperate battle on a forgotten island.